Yo, Uncle Shady at the mic. Back here, another video. This is an interesting story. So, where we at? Let's see. So, Punk Rock MBA, who is a super cool dude. This dude's channel, you should definitely subscribe. I clearly haven't. But Punk Rock MBA, he does really cool videos. This kid's from my scene. I grew up in the early 90s in the hardcore metal vegan straight edge scene. And I think this kid I think I'm a little bit older than this dude, but he, I think, was mainly a part of that genre too. And he did this video, The Most Hated Bands Volume 2, and I watched it because the homies brokencyde were on it, and I wanted to see what he had to say. And he actually didn't necessarily make fun of them, and actually credited them for starting the whole emo rap thing. And I was a little bit offended because, as you guys know, brokencyde was most definitely a product of Hollywood Undead, as were a lot of bands during this time. So, are we going? Are we live? Yeah, okay, we're good. So basically, so he did this video. It was pretty cool, but at the same time, I was like, how could you do, 20 minutes on brokencyde and not mention Hollywood Undead? Because I specifically, remember the brokencyde homies hitting us up, or Michael hitting us up really early on and being like, hey, check out this demo I'm working on. And it was like, it sounded, it sounded a lot like Hollywood Undead. Hip hop with crazy screams on it, which had never been done before at that point. So I left a comment and I was like, hey, I don't know how, I'm not sure I agree with you 100%. And then someone and this was a few years, I don't know, it was last year or something that he put out that video 2 years ago. So I left a comment just being like, I don't really agree with you. I agree, but I don't agree about a few of these things. I mean, how could you leave out Hollywood Undead in the equation? So this video then, someone sent me this and was like, bruh, you gotta watch this. And so I see this and I'm like, okay, here we go. Clearly, I'd imagine this is going to be a similar video to that one, as far as like his breakdown of brokencyde, and how this genre of music was very much ahead of its time. So we're going to get into this now. By the way, shout out to the homie Punk Rock MBA. Dude's got a dope channel.
What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and do you remember where you were when you first saw this video?
Oh yeah. Was that Jarrell's house?
If you were on MySpace back in 2008, you probably do, because this is a video that absolutely everybody was talking.
Was this 2008? I think he's wrong on that timeline. Leave a message in the comments with what year you think this was, because didn't Hollywood Undead start in like 2003, 2004? Because I remember brokencyde happening pretty quickly after that. It definitely wasn't 4 years later. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe you guys know.
about, because nobody had heard or seen really anything like that. And yes, that video is of course ridiculous in hindsight, but it was the breakout moment for what I think is one of the most interesting musical movements of the past 15 or 20 years, the CRUNKCORE scene. Brokencyde and Million. I'm
not sure I would call it CRUNKCORE because that was something brokencyde term brokencyde came up with, I believe. I would call it loosely emo rap. Specifically the hip hop beats with screams over it. That had not been done before me, for sure, without a doubt.
Would probably be the
and for sure, brokencyde came after. They became, man, arguably bigger than more infamous. Well, I wouldn't even say that. They probably achieved similar levels of popularity, although their Hollywood Undead was able to endure because they changed their sound quite a bit to kind of like accommodate the I'm trying to think, like the kind of metal, new metal, Linkin Park-ish kind of crowd, I suppose. So anyway, let's get into
the two biggest names that you might be familiar with.
Give me my alcohol.
Oh, miss these girls. They were a lot of fun.
And look, let's be real. Most of this was...
I completely forgot about Millionaires. Wow, that's funny.
not what you would call good music.
Dude. Finn's already killing it. Exactly my sentiment. You know, not the greatest music, but interesting and funny and popular for sure. It's hard. I rarely in my real life bring up my music past. And I have lots of friends who I've had for years that realize, or finally it comes around that that I was in Hollywood Undead, or just like bumping into people, or like last week I was out with my sister and she had a friend with her who was a big fan back in the day. But like people, you know, when they ask me if I was in Hollywood Undead, they always have this smile on their face, you know, that's like a different kind of. It's a smile like, oh, God, weren't we goofy kids, you know, back in the day? And during the MySpace days, that was some goofy stuff. And Hollywood Undead was kind of like a landmark of goofiness in that era. And I always see it on the face of the person asking me if I was in Hollywood Undead or wanting to hear about stories or something. They have this specific smile on their face because they're like, those were the days.
Especially in hindsight, but looking back,
we all had sick hair back though.
Actually kind of mind-blowing how ahead of the curve it was. That CRUNKCORE laid the foundation for so many trends that are now a huge part of alternative culture. So what happened? And what is its legacy today? Those are the questions that I will answer in this.
Oh, wow. Already got me all worked up. It's fucking true, man. Honestly, it's very true, and I feel like I've been the only one who has seen it over the years and known the truth, you know. And it's, I don't know, this is just, and to have one of my peers pointing it out is very nice because you know, I got a lot of haters.
This video. But first, if you haven't, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you get all my videos. Okay. And also, I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. You guys know that I'm a huge believer in self-improvement and self-education and building the skills that you need to bring your ideas to life, and Skillshare is a great way to do exactly that. But what a lot of you may not know is that I have actually worked in Skillshare. This store, real pro on forever, checks social things that I have also during subscription delay. A free and free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. First of all, for anybody asking, like, okay, wait a minute, what the hell is CRUNKCORE? Well, it's actually kind of exactly what you would guess from the name. Basically just Warped Tour scene kids doing their version of, like, mainstream party rap. Imagine a Lil Jon song.
Oh, bro. Oh my God. Bruh, you're killing me over here.
With like post-hardcore style screaming in it, and that's pretty much CRUNKCORE.
Post-hardcore screamo vocals. Where did that come from? Who started that? Who was a part of the hardcore scene? Who was a part of the hardcore scene for 15 years? Who is a hardcore singer? You guys, who do you know who's been in a bunch of hardcore and metal bands? Like since the early 90s. Who?
My personal introduction to CRUNKCORE was probably the same as 99% of you watching this. The video that I mentioned before for the brokencyde song Freaks with 3 X's. Just like most of you probably, someone sent me this.
God, this video. There was another band that put out an equally crazy, goofy video back in the day that was homemade. I don't know if you guys remember it. Man, there was a girl in the band that like carried a bat. And there was some kid who had actually 6 screams. Blonde kid with long hair who had 6 screams. Maybe you guys remember. Put it in the comments because I've been wanting to find that video because I want to react to it. I don't remember what it was, but there was a girl, and I remember she had a bat, and the blonde dude, and like another really crazy emo looking kid, and they're just like in a park doing a music video, and it's hysterical. I'm sure you guys know. But anyway.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? But unlike most people, I didn't hate it. As 99% of you watching this, the video that I mentioned before for the brokencyde song Freaks with 3 X's. Just like most of you probably, someone sent me this and I was like, what the fuck is this? But unlike most people, I didn't hate it. I was intrigued. Now, to be fair, I was partying a lot back then, so it's very likely that I was under the influence of one or more drugs when I heard it, and that may be a factor in why I liked it. I don't know. And of course, just like with everybody else, part of the appeal there to me was just like the WTF factor. Like, what is this? Where did it come from? Who are these kids? What is going on here?
Exactly. And that was the appeal of Hollywood Undead. When Hollywood Undead came out, everyone we came across was like, what is this? What are you guys doing? Why is this so catchy? And we started this.
So I looked them up on MySpace and Last.fm and whatever, and I realized that actually there was kind of a whole scene of this stuff. And I think you can kind of divide the CRUNKCORE scene up into a few different distinct flavors. First of all, the like pure CRUNKCORE flavor, the people doing basically the same thing as brokencyde of crunk rap with screaming.
Yeah, so brokencyde definitely cornered this sound, the more like Little John aspect sound of the genre that is the more crunk type CRUNKCORE. But like I'm trying to think of a better word for the overall genre that's not like emo rap because that's so generic. But you know, like Yeah, let me.
This was not a huge scene by any means, but a couple names that should be mentioned are Curve, Dropping a Popped Locket, Trap House Rave. Can't forget Family Force 5, the Christian CRUNKCORE band.
Oh my God.
I would also include Hollywood Undead here, although I know some people.
Include? Finn? Include? Boy. Hollywood Undead started this genre without a doubt. Maybe you're focusing on crunkcore, but hip hop or rap with screams in it came from me. Boy, me. These dudes ran with it for sure and did very well. But this is you don't include Hollywood Undead in this. This is about Hollywood Undead for sure.
People don't, but to me their early stuff is.
I don't see why you wouldn't or couldn't.
I would also include Hollywood Undead here, although I know some people don't. But to me, their early stuff is like the exact definition of seeing kids doing edgy party rap.
Who was the scene kid back in the day? Who was the hardcore singer? Who had the vocals early on? Who was the first person to do that?
And I would say that.
Who was that guy right there? Who was that guy? Oh,
no.
Who's that guy right there in the background? Hey, who's that right there? Who's the scene kid? Who's the hardcore kid? Who's the screamer? Who's the vocalist that does the fucking screams? Who's that guy? Who did that first?
And I would say that they were my personal favorite crunkcore artists. Like I said, I was partying a lot back then, and I had a friend that was super into them, so I'm not proud.
Obviously, see, he's talking about, that's exactly what I'm saying. Everyone has this, I'm not proud, but I loved that band back in the day. Smile on their face. That's hilarious. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Oh my God, this video is hilarious.
Out of this, but I spent many, many nights getting wasted with that album playing in the background, and so I know pretty much every word to every song on Swan Songs.
Well, wait a minute. Swan Songs came out in like 2010, 2011, didn't it? It came out like way later, so that's not early. I mean, y'all know, the real Hollywood Undead fans know that that's not early. Swan Songs isn't their early music. You know what their early music is. And on that early music, who's the guy screaming? Who's the hardcore scene kid that had been neck deep in the hardcore scene, post-hardcore vocals for 10, 15 years? Who's that guy? It's not these guys.
And the second flavor of crunkcore would be the pop flavor, which sounded more like, I don't know, an edgier version of, say, Metro Station, that kind of like electronic pop that was really popular at the time. The biggest name here would be Millionaires, who I would argue might actually be the biggest name in the whole genre.
They were for a minute. They got really big. All of a sudden, these girls were hanging out at all the clubs, you know, that I was talking about. And, you know, this was a funny era. I made a lot of club promoters a lot of money during this time, bringing all these kids around.
And I was obviously not the target audience for them, but I thought what they were doing was really fun. Kind of reminded me of like an updated version of the Electroclash artists from the early 2000s, like
Who's that girl? What was her name? She did that song. Oh, never mind. It'll come to me.
Avenue D.
Krayshawn. I wonder why she's not in here. Maybe she was a bit later on. She wasn't really in the early Those are some lyrics. Yeah, it's hard to say that Hollywood Undead didn't influence all of this crap.
And I just really like how much they antagonize that like music critic gatekeeper kind of crowd just by making what was really very innocuous party music for scene girls. And to me, it was all more or less part of the same phenomenon of scene kids doing their own edgy version of the mainstream party music that was popular at the time.
Yeah, we're getting pretty trapped, but these boys ain't getting any ass.
Which brings us to part 2, the rise. For a while, it seemed like crunkcore might be the next big thing. I mean, you can understand why it would be, right? It's party music. And as I've mentioned in my other videos, people do like fun. Brokencyde and Millionaires were getting massive amounts of press coverage. Most of it along the lines of some jaded hipster breathlessly typing a headline like, "We just found the worst band of all time." But still, they were getting a ton of attention, and that is always a good sign. And honestly, they were doing big numbers for an unsigned artist by any standard. Millions of plays on MySpace and YouTube back when a million plays on a song was a lot. And Melissa for Million.
Yeah. I didn't see millions on YouTube for a very long time. Like we see now, like any music video will get like, any popular music video will get like 10, 15 million views. By the way, I think YouTube's lying about that stuff. But anyway, this genre was huge. Hollywood Undead was huge in an era that when bands didn't get huge on the internet. That was one of the biggest things and the most interesting things music industry wise with Hollywood Undead. Tom took me, by the way, shout out to the homie who keeps sending me dope stuff. One of the homies sent me the link to the LA Times article I did with Tom. Some of the guys in Hollywood Undead said that I was just hanging out with them. It's pretty funny. So anyway, you could read this article. I'll post it in the comments somewhere. But it's an article where Tom MySpace took me. He had me do like 15 interviews with him, but this was the LA Times one was kind of the most important one. But it's basically me talking about how we started the band. You know, way back in the day. So, you know, this whole like, oh, Shady Jeff wasn't in the band. Shady Jeff didn't do vocals or didn't do anything. Like, give me a break. Are you kidding? But anyway, yeah, shout out to the homie because I was able to show my kids that article. I forgot it even existed. But yeah, so what made Hollywood Undead so interesting is that we were the first band to get huge purely on a social media site. And this was before Apple Music. This was right when MySpace music was coming out. So no one had music on the internet. There was no place to put your music on the internet that wasn't super mainstream where you'd have to spend a ton of money to get a CD downloaded. So, you know, without a record label, without ever touring, without ever playing shows, we got huge to the point where we were the biggest band on MySpace once MySpace came out. And I think Christmas in Hollywood was the biggest Christmas song downloaded on iTunes. The first year iTunes was out on Christmas. Like, that's big. Those are big things. And, you know, the band's still going now, you know, and doing kind of well. So it's like, it was a pretty big deal. And but it's funny because I feel the same way. It's like, hey, you know, I understand the smile on the face of everyone, you know, who asked me that stuff because it's like it was a funny era.
Millionaires was one of the most popular scene queens on MySpace at the time. Essentially the template for what we would think of as an influencer now, but we didn't have a word for it back then. She had like thousands and thousands of girls all over the world following her, basically
MySpace celebrities.
For her personal style and trying to be her.
That's what it was. Before influencer, it was MySpace celebrity. And I was big on MySpace before Hollywood Undead. Shady Jeff was a character not made up for Hollywood Undead. Shady Jeff existed before Hollywood Undead on MySpace.
Hollywood Undead were also getting a lot of buzz. As I recall, they were supposed to be the first band on MySpace Records, but that just never happened for whatever reason. But they did.
Yeah. MySpace Records at the time wasn't big enough to give us the type of money we wanted or we deserved at the time. I think Tom's deal was like, oh, we'll put you... I think he said that he was going to put us on the MySpace Music compilation. He'd put us at the top of MySpace Music and promote us like crazy if we gave him our first album. And we were like, no money. And I think he was like, oh, I could probably get you guys like 10 grand, or it was something small, like something not enough for 7 dudes. But, you know, Tom hooked us up and we were very loyal to him, at least while I was in the band. Yeah. So yeah, but then we went with Interscope, who gave us a lot of money.
Did sign to a major label, put out their first album, Swan Songs, which ended up actually going platinum. And brokencyde got on the MTV show TRL, which to this day is still bizarre to think about that happened. And so it was plausible to think that one of them might have some kind of like breakout hit.
Who are
Remember,
these guys? These guys were good too, and they were very, like, I was like, hey, 3-0 something. Yeah, these guys were totally up that genre. But they were big.
This is when stuff like Kesha, 303, and LMFAO was really popular. So it wasn't crazy to think that, say, Millionaires could have a huge song, especially considering that, like, Kesha pretty much...
I always felt like, those bands must have... Always felt like we influenced those bands, but those bands got big. But they were like... They were basically, all the labels fought over Hollywood Undead, didn't get it, and started their own Hollywood Undead bands, but they were a lot more poppy and goofy, more radio rock, radio friendly, club friendly than Hollywood Undead. We were more, I would dare to say, like the gangster rap side of that genre, but I wouldn't
copied
really
her whole style and sound from them. But it just kind of never happened. Brokencyde and Millionaires kept making music, but seemed like people just sort of lost interest in it. Hollywood Undead kept going and did well, but they had turned into more of like a nu metal-y butt rock kind of band. And the genre as a whole was kind of over by, I would say, like 2010.
Wow, bro, have you been watching my videos? What's your Uncle Shady been telling you for years now? After I left the band, they turned into Linkin Park. The originality left the band when I left the band. Those first half a dozen songs, that's Hollywood Undead. That was the band that influenced all these bands. That sound, not what they did later, that original sound, the first 5-6 songs with me doing the screams. No one else had the idea to do screams. I literally sat Aaron and Jarrell down and told them, Beastie Boys, Insane Clown Posse, but a little more metal, but like legit serious. That was the band we started. And that's what influenced all this stuff and started the whole screamy hip-hop thing, which endures to this day with trap metal and shit like that, which I love that shit. Oh, it's so good. I get so upset when I see these dudes that put that stuff out, because that is what I wanted to put out immediately after leaving Hollywood Undead. But that experience left me with such a bad taste in my mouth. I'm still recovering to this day, but I've been putting some music together lately, and I got some tricks up my sleeve you guys are gonna be You guys are gonna think it's
or so.
funny.
And as for why it died, well, the answer is pretty simple. As cool as it was in a lot of ways, like the honest truth is just that it was not very good.
By the way, hit subscribe, hit notifications, hit like on this. Please put a comment on the video as well as in the chat. Tiny chats are appreciated. Super chats, I mean, you can buy me a cup of coffee. So I have enough time to dig up this stuff. I've been finding some stuff in my old mail, and I found a song that I was supposed to be on with Brokencyde. They had sent me the rough version of a song that they ended up losing in a computer. That a computer got stolen from them, and they lost this track. And I just hit up Michael and was like, "Hey, you know, I have this old song we were supposed to do together, and so we might finish it, maybe, if you guys are interested." Yeah, so there's gonna be some fun stuff coming out of here soon, probably. And this is I can't believe this video. This video is great. Fucking big shouts to Fen.
For the most part. Like 99% of it was almost unlistenable. That was really only going to appeal to like edgy 14-year-old MySpace kids. And so as soon as those kids moved on to the next thing, once the novelty of CRUNKCORE wore off, it was just kind of over. Although, as I'll talk about in a minute, I think it left a bigger...
It was over, not for the people that got involved. You know, I know a lot of Hollywood Undead fans still really like Hollywood Undead and have supported them over the years. They still play pretty big shows. You know.
Bigger impact than most people realize.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Which brings us to part 3. So what exactly was so cool about CRUNKCORE? Why did you make this video?
It was new, it was original, it was kind of funny and interesting during a time where there was a lot of serious music. And, you know, we all were kids who wanted to, you know, party and have fun before we had to grow up and be old and start stressing out and paying bills and stuff like that. I don't know how I didn't have a job for 10 years in Hollywood. I don't know how I got by. I mean, I got by like really like being in music videos and like being in background in movies and like working on cars and working on motorcycles, like just doing random stuff. But like, man, I don't know how I survived so many years partying. But yeah, it was fun times.
First of all, like I said in the beginning, it was very clearly an outsider art movement, which is kind of a douchey term from like the fine art world, but I think it actually describes CRUNKCORE perfectly. Outsider art is art by self-taught or naive art makers. Typically, those labeled as outsider artists have little or no contact with the mainstream art world or art institutions. That sounds to me like the description of a whole lot of the most interesting movements in alternative music. For example, early punk and black metal. And I've always been drawn to the kind of energy of those movements because that is where you find the true free thinkers. The people who really just do whatever they want with their art with no regard to what the quote-unquote rules are. Which is exactly why all the critics and media gatekeepers hated CRUNKCORE. These were kids from out of the way, uncool places like Evansville and Albuquerque who broke...
Ain't that the truth? So I grew up in the hardcore scene, right, which was real serious. I got so much shit from my old friends and from that old scene for being in Hollywood Undead. All right, dudes from like Orange County that wanted to beat me up because they're so serious about hardcore and the fact that I was from Orange County and I took hardcore and put it in this type of music, put hardcore vocals in this type of music. They were so mad at me. I literally had, luckily I had a lot of lot of people around me back in the day, but I remember this one party, these Orange County kids showed up and they're like, we're gonna fucking beat Shady Jeff's ass. And like, I had enough friends there that they're like, no, you're not. And nothing happened, but like, people were pissed that I took hardcore vocals and put them in that type of music. Super pissed.
All the rules established by these gatekeepers because they didn't even know what the rules were.
Exactly. Who are you to say what type of music I do, you know?
Much less give a shit about following them. For one, they combined two genres of music that critics have always hated: party rap or pop, and scene music. The critics hated Lil Jon and Suicide Silence, so when brokencyde combined them together into one kind of music,
Suicide Silence,
that was just too much for the critics to handle.
It's true. I mean, Suicide Silence vocals are like, those are the vocals I use. But what homie doesn't understand is Hollywood Undead came first. Absolutely, without a doubt. Just because these bands came along, they didn't start this sound. And I'm going to pound that into the ground until the day I die. Like, we came before them. I was the one who put the heavy vocals on Jarrell and Aaron's little goofy hip hop songs.
Now, the basic idea of combining rap and alternative music, that was fine. I mean, these critics all love Beastie Boys and Faith No More, for example, or early alternative rap like Atmosphere or whatever. But
I have an Atmosphere tattoo. Not an Atmosphere tattoo, but one of his lip. Beastie Boys. Didn't I just say Beastie Boys? Bruh. You're killing me here, bruh. You must have been watching my videos recently. He must have. Maybe he read my comment and watched all my videos. Because this is too on point almost. Like, I don't know.
Party rap? That is against the rules. You're not allowed to have fun. This is part of the reason why they hated Limp Bizkit too, because a big part of Limp Bizkit was being party music.
Yeah!
I sometimes like to call those people the No Fun Club because they seem to get...
I think people used to even make fun of Hollywood Undead because they'd call us... I remember because Limp Bizkit was just super hated on, even though they're an awesome band, but people were like, oh, this is fucking Limp Bizkit.
Get really upset by music that people can use as the soundtrack for fun. For example, mainstream pop, pop country, EDM, or any of that mainstream party rap. And CRUNKCORE was basically just the scene kid version of Lil Jon, Katy Perry, or Calvin Harris. And the second rule that they broke was that they weren't really bands in the traditional sense.
Nope.
Most of them didn't actually play instruments.
They're a weird hybrid boy band. Weird kind of strange hybrid. It's definitely, dude, this dude put some thought into this video. It's a really good video. Damn.
Instruments. They just rapped or
I feel vindicated, bro.
screamed over.
I've been telling people this for years, and they're like, okay, all right, Jeff, sure, you started emo rap.
Like GarageBand loops, which personally I thought was really cool, even if it didn't like sound quote unquote good. They just wanted to make music, so they worked with what they had, right?
Yeah, it was...
And what is more punk than that? And the third rule that they broke is that they just completely sidestepped the entire music industry, at least at first. They did DIY.
Like I said, we were the first band to get big without a label, using the internet and DIY stuff. I used MySpace to get that band big. I left comments on every single person who came to our page, who followed us. We'd go to their page and I'd leave them a comment. I'd randomly comment on just you have to do all that work. We did so much work with the grassroots fans to get that band going.
Home recordings way before that was
the internet hardly existed back then.
Popular. Like I did a podcast with Melissa from Millionaires, and she was talking about how her and her sister did those songs like on the desktop PC in like their living room that they shared with the whole family. And then they distributed those like super raw DIY recordings themselves on MySpace and DatPiff and whatever else was around back then. going around all the blogs and stuff who were used to being the gatekeepers of power for promoting new music. And like I said earlier, put up pretty big numbers. They were getting millions of plays in a time where streaming wasn't even a word. Certainly it was a fraction of what it is today. And I think the fact that they just sidestepped all the existing power players in the industry was part of why those same people reacted so negatively to them, because their power was threatened.
What's the big dealio? Okay. Oh my God. What the fuck?
And that playbook is obviously very common now, but remember, this was over a decade ago, almost 15 years ago now. Even something as simple as putting out mixtapes was a very new idea back then, at least in the context of alternative music. Like, mixtapes were a rap thing. Rock bands didn't do that, but the CRUNKCORE kids did, because why the fuck not? Like, it never occurred to them to stop and check the list of rules as to whether they were allowed to do that or not. And so if you think about it, what they were doing in like 2007 to 2009 was the blueprint for being a DIY musician today. And if you just kind of zoom out a little bit, if current alternative...
Literally why I went on that advertising campaign with Tom, because Tom wanted to promote MySpace music, and that video, the interview I gave you guys yesterday, the first Hollywood Undead video ever, that was to promote putting your music on the internet and doing everything yourself on the internet. That is to get your band big. That's literally the blueprint. That's literally I went on I went with Tom from MySpace and did like 15 interviews about how it's possible to make a band big on the internet. That's literally what homie's talking about. And it started with me.
music culture is defined by...
And guess who gets no credit whatsoever? Guess who's made not a cent off this genre? Guess who gets shit talked about him on the internet? Oh, he had nothing to do with Hollywood Undead musically or anything like that.
Extremely online kids making weird shit in their bedrooms and sharing.
You can't you can't look at all the early Hollywood Undead stuff and not say that that's me doing the screams on those songs, and that was the first music out of this genre. Prove me fucking wrong, people.
It on like kind of semi-underground obscure corners of the internet and then blowing the fuck up. Meanwhile, all the adults are shitting on everything that they do. Well, that's what CRUNKCORE was. And another thing I've talked about recently is this seemingly new model where the artist is an internet personality or influencer as much as they are a musician. For example, Jaden, Corpse, and
Shady Jeff was big on MySpace before Hollywood Undead. I didn't change my name. I didn't make a name up.
Huddy? Well, that's not actually a new idea at all. Melissa from Millionaires was doing that in 2008. Now, all of that being said, I also have to point out some parts of the CRUNKCORE scene that did not age well and in hindsight was kind of not cool. Number one is the existence and popularity of Blood on the Dance Floor. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I think probably most people are familiar with this, but they were a big part of that scene. And to make a long story short, there have been a lot of very serious, troubling allegations against the main guy from Blood on the Dance Floor, Davi Vanity. You can look them up yourself if you want more detail, but basically, this guy seems like he is a complete piece of shit human, and it's kind of a black eye on the scene that he was such a big part of it. There was also a lot of lyrical content that in hindsight really did not age well and was not cool, especially considering that such a large part of the fan base was really young girls. For example, or my personal favorite moment of CRUNKCORE cringe, this song, which at first seems to be a corny, shitty, but harmless kind of love song, except that he says the N-word not once, but...
Hold on. Sorry. Hold on. I gotta back up. Hold on. What did he just say?
Really did not age well and was not cool, especially considering that such a large part of the fan base was really young girls. For example, or my personal favorite moment of CRUNKCORE cringe, this song, which at first
God, you guys. Wow. 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 What does Shady Jeff like least about Hollywood Undead? Which songs, guys? Which fucking songs does which songs made Shady Jeff no longer interested in continuing to play music for Hollywood Undead? What type of content did Shady Jeff not want to do? Dick and butt jokes? Charlie Cini's got a big old weenie? My dick gets intoxicated? Like, bros. Oh my God. This dude's killing me with this video. This is amazing. This is like, I gotta hit this guy up and send him an email or something.
Seems to be a corny, shitty, but harmless kind of love personality or influencer. Is too much detail here because
that was too funny.
I think probably most people are familiar with this, but they were a big part of that scene. And to make a long story short, there was like he is a complete well and was not cool, especially considering that such a large part of the fan base was really.
Was that Deuce lifting weights? Was that honestly Deuce lifting weights? You guys know that's called projecting, right? That's like where you present your biggest insecurity. Look at those arms, bro. Little 80-pound Aaron lifting weights in a music video. Holy crap. What video is this, by the way? Lordy, lordy, lordy. This is hilarious. This is funny. I can't even. This is like
young girls. For example,
bro, this guy's killing it. Holy crap.
Or my personal favorite moment of CRUNKCORE cringe. This song, which at first seems to be a corny, shitty, but harmless kind of love song, except that he says the N-word not once, but 3 times.
Oh,
Which brings us to the
words aren't bad, people. Words with bad intentions are words, you know, like
last section. What exactly is the legacy of CRUNKCORE? I'll say this. I think there are very few artists now who, if you asked them, would say that their influences were brokencyde, Curve, Millionaires, and Hollywood Undead. But at the same time, it's hard to ignore that a lot of current alternative music and fashion is very, very, very similar to what CRUNKCORE artists did back in the late 2000s. For example, look at this guy.
You guys remember, as early as you can find pictures, I was the best member of Hollywood Undead. These guys didn't even have tattoos before I was around. They used to make fun of me for having expensive jeans and tattoos and having seen hair.
You tell me. CRUNKCORE artist from 2008 or famous e-boy TikToker from 2021. You can say what you want about how cringe this is. Obviously, it's ridiculous, but I would say the CRUNKCORE artists were the peak of like the scene look from an aesthetic perspective, and that is back in a big, big way on alternative TikTok. Or listen to this brokencyde song from 2007.
Sounds like trap metal. Sounds a lot like trap metal.
To me, that is very, very clearly the blueprint for the trap metal stuff that started coming out around like 2014 or so. For example,
is this dude in my brain? Ooh, who's this? Ooh.
And a lot of people have pointed out before how similar Kesha's early stuff was to Millionaires, and I have to agree.
I know Kesha.
Whether that's a conscious copy of,
you know, Kesha's like my age, and they sold her as being like a teenager, but she was like my age. She's not a young lady.
Them or not, I don't know, but they definitely do.
It's so crazy. Like they made her look like she was 20. That's nuts.
do sound very, very similar.
Yeah. This song's a banger, by the way, though.
And for better or worse, this is also the scene that launched the career of Jeffree Star.
Bruh. Who knew Jeffree Star back in the day? Who was the scene kid who dressed like all super scene? Who started the hip-hop band and put screamy vocals over it, hardcore vocals? Who did all that stuff? Who did all that stuff? Who knew Jeffree Star? Who got Jeffree Star to do the first piece of music that Jeffree Star ever did? Who did it? Who brought Jeffree Star in to do a song despite the fact all the other guys in the band didn't want to do it? Who all wouldn't get who brought Jeffree Star in to do his first music despite the fact that all the other guys in his band didn't want to be anywhere near Jeffree Star? I had to convince Jeffree Star to like throw on some Dickies and a hoodie to come over to record because Aaron was so uncomfortable. Who did this? Who? All you guys in the chat, who did this? Who? Good God. Jeffree Star.
I remember him as the guy who rapped about sucking dick on an early Hollywood Undead
A song that I put together! Oh my God. Bruh, this dude. I need to send this guy a beer somehow. Holy cow.
song.
This is Jeffree fucking Star, and this is a big fuck you to tell you.
Hey, whose vocals are that screaming right there?
Your boyfriends.
But
here
he's
comes-
gone on to become one of the most popular, powerful influencers in the beauty world, and he's probably worth a couple $100 million now. And maybe the biggest.
Bro, you need to retitle this video how Shady Jeff started CRUNKCORE. Basically, is what you need to do.
Connection to make current music is hyperpop. A lot of people have compared 100 Gex to Brokencyde, and I actually agree with Anthony Fantano's take on this. I don't really think there's a super strong connection there.
I mean, this is as silly as saying a group like City Morgue is heavily influenced by Limp Bizkit.
But still, I think it's cool to see that hipsters have finally come around, that even Vice is defending the honor of Brokencyde. Welcome aboard, Vice. You're only 12 to 14 years late, as usual. But broadly speaking, I would say that CRUNKCORE laid the foundation for hyperpop. I mean, listen to this Scene Kids song from 2008. That could 100% be on some hipster-approved hyperpop playlist from 2021. And it does seem like there are some younger artists who want to bring the CRUNKCORE thing back. For example, this artist, who I think is called Punk in Love, that looks and sounds straight out of 2007. So although CRUNKCORE never really made it out of that short-lived moment of the late 2000s, I do think it left an impact. And like I said earlier, I think it might be the last time that we saw like a true outsider art movement in alternative music. When I've mentioned this before, people pointed to hyperpop as the current example of that, but I don't really agree. I think hyperpop is awesome. I really like what those artists are doing, but they are most definitely insiders. The same type of critics who hated CRUNKCORE love hyperpop, and those artists are very self-aware. They know exactly what they're doing, which is not a bad thing at all or criticism. I just think that takes them out of the discussion of being outsiders, which kind of raises the larger question of, is outsider art even possible anymore? Can anyone really be an outsider?
Maybe.
If the definition is those...
That's kind of the whole point these days, is to try and be that outsider. Clearly, Hollywood Undead were that definitely fit this category for sure at the time, but doing that again now, it's already been done. That's why I haven't done music since Hollywood Undead, because like I can't just put anything out. You know, like I can't just put whatever out. Like it's got to be art. So I haven't done it yet. It hasn't felt like the right time, but it's starting to feel that way again. But this is the whole point of new music now, is to, since everything's been done already, do something new, which is not easy. Very, very much so not easy.
Labeled as outsider artists have little or no contact with the mainstream art world or art institutions. I'm not sure it's even possible to be an outsider anymore. I mean, with social media being what it is, everybody knows everything.
I think it's still possible.
About everything. Like there's some kid who lives in some shit kicker little town in the middle of Minnesota or whatever who knows everything that there is to know about every cool new hypebeast sneaker drop because he spends all day on the internet researching it. He may live in the middle of nowhere, but he's not an outsider. I kind of feel like the days of outsider art are over, but I don't know, I hope I'm wrong, because the coolest stuff often comes from those outsiders. And if the last true moment of outsider art in alternative culture was Jeffree Star rapping about sucking dick in a Hollywood Undead song, well, that would be kind of an odd note to end on. All right, my friends, that does it for this video about CRUNKCORE. As always, I would love to know what you think in the comments.
Wow, guys. Holy crap. Spiritual rock, hardcore rock quest. That was amazing, you guys. Holy crap. I can't even believe homie did that. And it's funny because, like, when I saw his first video, I was like, what the fuck? You're not even going to talk about Hollywood Undead? Like, are you kidding? And then he clearly did a better version of that video. Anyway, I'm going to get to the chat questions, see if you guys are asking anything. Swan Songs came out in 2008. Okay. I guess that makes sense. September 2008. September 11. Oh, American Tragedy. Okay, yeah. So they were done by that album. I remember the first brokencyde song I heard was Blame Tom. Millionaires were in it. Came to the party music video by Deuce. So probably. First time I heard Hollywood Undead was on the radio. Yeah, because Aaron was going to use all the tricks I showed him, to make his band big, but it didn't work quite as well because he's doing the same thing over again. He wasn't doing art. He was reproducing something that had already been done. That's why his band didn't get as big. And he self-destructed. LMFAO was pretty funny. No, that's not the band. No, so the band I was asking you about, they were a bunch of young kids. And it was not... LMFAO was a huge band. This was kids making a music video in their backyard, like really young kids, like teenagers who did a music video that was worse than... It was pretty bad, but it was kind of impressive at the same time because you're watching, like, it's like watching those... you see the videos of all the techno goths dancing to techno music. It's like watching that. You can't stop watching it because you're like, this is the most unusual thing I've ever seen in my life. And for some reason, I kind of like it. But yeah, I'm definitely close to doing some music. I've just have instruments around me again. I have recording equipment again. I have a little bit of inspiration. I'm talking to some people about I'm talking to a couple other musicians and shit. But the first releases I'll do covers of the Hollywood Undead songs that was on. Oh man, they would be pissed. Okay, yeah. Everywhere, leaning, comment, video, wherever everything's Deuce lifting those weights. Yeah. Deuce lifting weights. That was really funny scene in that video. Big Deuce, Big Deuce. Oh my god. I really want to produce some old school HU kind of stuff for your comeback. Hey, dude, hit me up. ShadyJeff at Gmail. Send me your beats. Send me your beats. I'm always down to look at beats. I know the video we're talking about. I just can't remember the name. Yeah, I bet you do. Like, we all remember that video. We just can't remember the name because the video was the only interesting thing. But it like wasn't bad. Like I remember that kid having the sickest screams of all this genre. Like, and it was something really funny. But anyway, yeah, dude. ShadyJeff at Gmail. Send me your beats. I will talk to you guys later. That was amazing. Holy crap. That was amazing. Please leave comments, likes, all that stuff. Subscribe to my YouTube. Most of you guys aren't subscribed. Tell your friends. Put me up on the Shady Jeff Reddit, even though they talk a bunch of shit there. And I will talk to you guys later. Oh, also follow Finn McKenty. Dude's a badass. His videos. This is very interesting page for music if you're into music. All these posters behind him are from the hardcore scene that I was a big part of back in the day. Amazing music up here that no one's heard of. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later. That was a lot of fun. Uncle Shady, off the mic. Peace.